But what we ignored was all the debt that we were accumulating to get that GDP. It wasn't worth the trade-off. Now, the bubble burst, as they always do, and all of a sudden now we have a much bigger recession than the one we would have had in 2001 and 2002 had the government done nothing. Doing nothing was what they should have done. Letting the recession happen was what they should have done, because the recession is a cure. The phony boom, that was a disease. That's where the economy got sick. That's where we did all these stupid things. During the recession is when the economy rebalances. The bigger the boom, the bigger the bust. The bust is painful, but it's necessary to restore balance to the economy. But what did we do? We made the economy more out of balance. Right? When we should have been saving our money, we went deeper into debt. When we should have been producing stuff, we bought more stuff. And so we borrowed and spent our way into a bigger crisis. Now, we get another bursting of another bubble with much more profound consequences than the NASDAQ. And what does Obama do? What's his plan? What does Bernanke do? Right? They campaigned on change. What did they change? They didn't change anything. They're doing exactly what Bush and Greenspan did, only bigger. Greenspan lowered interest rates to 1%. Well, Bernanke's got them at 0. Imagine, look at all the damage we did at 1%. Imagine what 0 was doing. And Bush, his deficits were $300 billion. Obama's are over $1 trillion. They're close to $2 trillion. So we have just, blown the lid. I mean, this is the biggest stimulus ever. So it's going to produce the biggest bust ever. The real crisis. And that's why when I'm talking to people about the economic crisis, they think it's already happened. It hasn't happened. It's going to happen in a few years. Because now, we're not just going to have a credit crisis, we're going to have a currency crisis. That is going to be the trade-off. There's always a trade-off, right? Whenever you have this artificial stimulus, the other side is the payback. And the payback here is going to be the collapse of the value of the dollar. You can start to hear it in the news. The dollar hits a new record low every day. Gold, again, at a new record high today. Gold prices are approaching $1,200 an ounce. Silver is now $18.75 an ounce. Oil's back over $80 a barrel. Copper prices, all these prices are going up. They're going up because the value of the money is going down, because we're printing it like crazy. When the politicians create money and spend it, there's a cost to average Americans, even though they don't exact it in taxes. They're taking your purchasing power. They're debasing your savings. They're debasing the value of your wages. They're debasing the cash values of your insurance policies or annuities, and they're confiscating that money, that wealth, and they're spending it. And this is what they're doing. And all the programs and all the stimulus that are designed to artificially prop up a phony economy, right? You cannot have an economy based on spending borrowed money. You can't have an economy where we import stuff and export IOUs. The only way we can have a real economy is if the government allows it to restructure. We need to save our way and produce our way and invest our way out of debt. We can't borrow our way out of debt. So this requires a lot of sacrifices that the politicians refuse to allow us to make. All the stimulus is designed to get us to spend more money, buy more cars, buy more houses. But that's why we're broke. We bought too many cars. We bankrupted all the car companies. We bankrupted GMAC because too many people took out car loans they couldn't afford. Why are we making them take out more? We bankrupted Fannie and Freddie. The whole subprime market is bankrupt, but now the government is doing the exact same thing. FHA has picked up the entire subprime market. You can buy houses with no down payments now. You get them from the government. You can get teaser rates again because the government is doing it. So instead of letting the economy restructure, they're trying to, they're trying to put more of the problem. They're trying to get more borrowing and spending when we're already broke from the last consumption binge. So instead of allowing this to correct, the government is going to keep on printing money to artificially stimulate it. And what the government is trying to do is try to pretend that if they print enough money, that we don't have to lose anything, that our houses don't have to fall in value, that they can stay at these bubble prices, and we can pretend that that home equity that really isn't there is there. That if we put money in a bank, and the bank was stupid enough to make a crazy loan to a subprime mortgage, that we're not going to lose any money in our deposits because the government is insuring it. And they're going to print up trillions of dollars to make sure that nobody loses any money. But when they do that, there's a trade-off. We don't lose any money, but the money loses its value. And the result is even worse as far as our purchasing power is concerned. So that's what we're setting up. We're setting up this currency crisis, and it's coming probably maybe in 2010 or 11. The dollar's going to fall through the floor. And when that happens, the price of everything that we want to buy is going to go straight up. And if we thought gasoline was expensive at $4 a gallon, wait till it's 8, wait till it's 10, wait till it's higher. And it's not just gasoline. It's going to be milk. It's going to be eggs. It's going to be clothing. It's going to be anything that we need to buy is going to be more expensive. But ultimately, interest rates will rise too. Long-term interest rates will shoot up. And then not only will we have double-digit unemployment, but we'll have double-digit interest rates, double-digit inflation, all happening at the same time. What's the government going to do then? This is where it really gets scary. Because the worse the crisis gets, the more the government pretends that they're the solution. Right? It's like there's this giant fire, and the government thinks that the way you put it out is you pour gasoline on it. And then the bigger the fire gets, all they can think about is, well, we must need more gasoline. And they keep pouring on. And they keep blaming the free market. Right? Everybody is saying that the reason we had this crisis is because there was too much greed. Right? We didn't have enough regulation. That's the opposite. It was too much regulation. The free market would have prevented all this stuff from happening. But the government interfered. The government kept the natural market forces that would have restrained all this greed, which is fear, from working. We had all these moral hazards. We had interest rates artificially low. We had entities like Freddie and Fannie guaranteeing mortgages, so lenders didn't care if the borrowers could repay. This is a government crisis. This is a failure of socialism, not a failure of capitalism, not a failure of free markets. And the only solutions that we're going to have is to get the government out of the way and to let the market function. We need to let the Fed raise interest rates because they're much too low. We have to let asset prices find a natural level. We have to let companies that are insolvent go bankrupt. And we have to let this economy restructure. As painful as it is, that is the only cure that will work. And if we try to avoid it, if we try to keep postponing it, we will completely destroy the economy. We will wipe out the value of our currency, and that'll be worse than anything any of us have experienced. It'll probably be worse than what our grandparents experienced during the Great Depression. And our politicians are telling us, and I'm going to wrap it up, the politicians are telling us that if we do nothing, it could be a Great Depression. No. It's because what we're doing that we're going to have another Great Depression, only an inflationary depression, because that's exactly what Hoover and Roosevelt did. They did the same thing as Bush and Obama. They didn't let the free market work. They interfered, they stimulated, and they created that depression. And we're doing it all over again, only on a bigger scale, because the country is in more trouble, and the government is enormous now, as opposed to what it was back then. So we can do a lot more damage now. And so if I go to the Senate, I'm going to do my best to stop this, to talk some sense into the other politicians who are only there for one reason, to get reelected. I don't want to get reelected. I wish I didn't even have to run in the first place. The problem is the senators that are there, they're never going to solve these problems. Their only problem is how to get reelected. That's not my problem. My problem is to try to prevent them from doing more damage. Right? I don't want to go to Congress to write new legislation. I want to tear up all the legislation they've been writing. I want to unleash the free market that they've caged. And I want to cage back government. I want to shrink government. I want it to spend less so we can lower taxes, so that we can lower regulations, so that we can have real growth again. I mean, the government, Obama is having this meeting. He's trying to have a big jobs summit to try to figure out how to create jobs. He's destroying all the jobs. And they're never going to come back unless we have more capital and more profit potential for entrepreneurs, which we're never going to have if we keep following these programs. So I want to go there and put an end to all that. And I also want to try to rebuild the Republican brand, which I think has been badly tarnished by people who have campaigned as conservatives, as Republicans, but who have governed as Democrats. The Republicans promised smaller government, but they give us bigger government. Under George Bush, he was the biggest spender since Lyndon Johnson. I mean, he completely increased the size of government, and all the Republicans went along with it. Nobody criticized him. I criticized him every step of the way. I criticized everything that the Republicans were doing under the name of free market capitalism, but it was all the same nonsense that's being pushed by the Democrats. So hopefully, if we can come back in 2010 or 2012 with Republicans who really represent something different, that represent, a true return to limited government, to shrinking government, like Barry Goldwater or like Ronald Reagan, not the characters we've had recently, then maybe we can retake our party and retake our country. Because if we don't do it, I think it's going to be a complete disaster. Anyway, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them about it.